What is one of the most important decisions that you'll make once in your life, but then end up making every day thereafter? Today on the No Gray Areas podcast, we answer that question. You won't want to miss it. Catch it now. So today on the No Gray Areas podcast, we have a very, very, very special guest. Anybody who has heard me speak, they know that I will often joke about, well, this is my favorite passage. Say this is my favorite passage. I mean it, but I really mean it this time. This is my most favorite person in the entire world. My wife, Sharmin McCalla. She's joining us on the podcast, so welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to have you here. So we're going to do a podcast today about marriage. Some people asked us about this. We were forced into this. You were forced into this.
I was totally forced into this.
Because this is your favorite thing to do, isn't it?
Not my cup of tea at all.
Yeah.
So I apologize in advance for anything that I may or may not say.
Well, what people don't know is I did public speaking for a lot of years, and they don't know that you always threatened my life, said, if you ever call me up on that stage, right?
That is absolutely 100%
yes.
true.
So you're on the stage right now. There's no audience. You're fine. Well, this fits into the No Gray Areas podcast because it's about the power of choices, the complexity of choices. And I'm going to get into some statistics in a moment. But the biggest choice that anyone will make in this life is their spouse, who they marry. And then day to day, the decisions they make on what they do with their marriage, how they grow that marriage, or how they can hurt that marriage. So when we talk about the complexity of choice and the power of choice, there's no choice that you're going to make that's more important than your marriage and how you feed into that marriage. But the statistics I'm going to show you actually gave to me recently. So we got to start with this, though, because people have to know our story. We have an interesting story. We always talk about it. It's kind of a fairy tale story. We met what year? Or how old were we?
We were in sixth grade.
We were in sixth grade, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was love at first sight.
No, not really.
Well, we'll get into that in a moment. That's another question that we have. But we started dating our sophomore year in high school. Our first date, though, was interesting. This will show people how young we were. Tell them a little bit about our first date, right?
Oh, our first date was we were both sophomores in high school, and you did not have your driver's license yet.
Yes.
So I lived about a half hour out of town where the school was. So you had to ride the bus home with me.
Yeah.
And then we waited until my mom got home from work.
Yeah.
My brother and sister were with us and at the house. And then when she got home from work, then we left for our date because I could drive.
But I couldn't
I had
drive.
my license and you did not.
So our first date, I had to take the school bus home with you.
Yes.
And then wait and then go on a date with you because you
Yes.
could drive and I couldn't drive. That shows people how young we were. But we kind of liked each other in sixth grade, right? We had the instant crush. You remember how much I tried to impress you those early years?
I do not actually remember how much you tried to impress me, but I like to hear the stories because I just don't remember.
There was one time we were out at recess. I wanted you to see what a great athlete I was. And so it was snowing out and it was right at the end of recess. And I don't remember who it was, one of our friends, right? He throws this pass and I'm running and I'm sure you're watching me. I just know that you're just standing over there doing nothing at recess but watching me.
Staring at you.
Yes, that's what I thought was happening.
Of course.
And I'm running as fast as I can and I just lay out for this because it's way out there. And I'm just, you can picture me. I look like a hero just flying through the air and I catch this football
like Superman.
and I bring it in. And apparently right before recess, a dog had dropped its right there, and I went sliding through this fresh dog poop all over me. And since I lived a long way from town too, I had no change of clothes. My mom couldn't bring a change of clothes, so I had to go in from recess. I had to clean up as much as I could, but everybody in class, and it's funny you don't remember this because
I remembered it because you probably stunk.
Oh,
so
I did.
bad.
Everybody made fun of me the whole rest of the day, and I thought I lost my chance with her. That was it. I lost my chance with her. But a couple of years later, we started dating. Well, how did I propose? We were how old?
When you proposed?
Yeah.
We were we 18?
19.
No, I think I was 19.
Yeah.
I think I was 19.
Barely 19.
Yeah. No, I was only 18. I hadn't had my birthday yet.
You're right.
I was only 18.
You're right. I had just turned 19. We got
Yes.
married when we were 19, but
I hadn't
when
had
I
my
proposed
birthday
to
yet.
you,
It was
you were
January.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
You did not see that coming, right? So
No,
explain. Yeah,
I did not see that
tell 'em.
coming. We were out really late the night before, and it was usually me and all of your friends, and we were out ice skating at an outdoor rink, and it was gorgeous. Like the snow was coming down. It was beautiful. And then we went back to the apartment that you shared with friends, and we were just hanging out and having pizza and whatever really late because your friends worked
Our main
at a
food
pizza
group
place.
was pizza, yeah.
Yeah. Do people know that in your apartment, you used to keep all of your pizza boxes, and you
Yes.
had a whole stack of pizza boxes, like almost up to the ceiling.
Almost up to the ceiling 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
true.
it was unhealthy. He
It
got
was
free
very
pizza.
yes, yes.
So
but
yeah,
yes,
we were out skating till 2 in the morning having
yes.
pizza.
I think we're talking with a friend of yours, and you just said, "Here, let's go for a drive." And it's like 2 in the morning, and I said, "I really need to get home." And you're like, "Well, let's just go for a drive first." And it's like, okay. So we started driving around, and you stopped at a gas station, and you didn't tell me what was going on. And it was really icy out. And so we ended up in the Albertsons parking lot, and you started doing
You can't get much more romantic than this.
like donuts. If people don't know what donuts are, look it up.
Spinning the
But
car in circles on the
right
ice.
on the ice. And you did one, and you stopped, and you looked at me, and you pulled a fake rose from the gas
All
station
they had at the gas station that night.
out of your coat, and you handed it to me, and you said, "They say if you buy her a rose, she'll love you forever. Will you marry me?"
Yeah.
And I thought you were kidding. I thought you were joking. I didn't think you were serious. And then I quickly realized that you were serious, and it was very, very sweet. And I went home. I couldn't quit smiling. In fact, my mom the next morning was like, "Why are you so happy?"
Because I had told you can't say anything to your parents, because I vowed that I would ask your dad. I vowed to myself that I would ask your dad first, your parents' permission.
Yes.
And I hadn't, because that was
it was very spur of the moment.
It was very spur of the moment in the sense of I was thinking that we had to, the typical thing. We got to wait till we're through college and all of that. And the reality of it hit me that we probably wouldn't stay together, because I was going to go away to college. You were going to stay there. And long distance relationships usually don't happen. And so kind of spur of the moment, I'm just going to ask her to marry me.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are. How many years later?
31.
31 years of marriage now. We actually, yesterday when we were talking about this, we had to pause and make sure it was 31 and not like 32, right?
Right. Yeah. We always mess that up.
Well, this is why this podcast is so important. Again, because it fits with the complexity of choices, the power of choices. You actually, Sharmin, you sent me a statistic the other day, and it was data on who we spend our time with over the course of our lives. So I want the audience to imagine that they're seeing a graph. Time spent with parents and siblings. It peaks in childhood and declines after age 20. So you can actually picture this graph in your mind of the time spent with parents and siblings, goes up at 20 and then it just drops off. Time spent with friends peaks at age 18 and declines sharply to a low baseline. Time spent with children peaks in your 30s and declines sharply. So obviously you're spending a lot of time with them, drops a little bit, but then at 30, poof. Time spent with coworkers, steady during the prime working years, 20 to 60 is basically the same. Here's what's interesting. Time spent with a partner trends upward until death, which means the person that you're going to spend, your spouse, whoever you ask to marry you this year, spend the rest of your life with, you're going to spend more and more and more time with them.
That has definitely been true in our relationship.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially once your kids
so
leave home.
You better like that person, right?
That's true. That's true.
Because it has been true with us. I mean, we knew each other since 6th grade. We dated in high school. We get married at 19. We started a family. I mean, here we are now, 31 years later. We have 3 kids, 2 amazing son-in-law and a daughter-in-law, and then 6 grandkids. But we're finding that we're spending more time together now than we really have in our entire married life.
That is very true. Definitely.
So it indicates the importance of making sure you choose the right one, and then you make good choices along the way on having a happy marriage. So one of the things we want to do, we're going to get into some questions that the audience sent in, but we want to play a newlywed game for not so newlyweds.
All right. Okay, let's do this.
Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to read a question, and then I'm going to just count down 3, 2, 1, and we're both going to give who we think the answer is.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll do 10 of them. And since we're both competitive, we're going to keep score on this. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And we're going to have to mutually agree who won, which is actually good. Everybody's going to listen or watch.
We can agree to disagree on something.
See, we're going to have a fight right now. All right, here we go. Who is more organized? 3, 2, 1.
Me.
Sharmin. Who is the better cook? 3, 2, 1.
Me.
Sharmin. Who said...
Unless it's grilling or the smoker, then it's absolutely you, because I don't touch those.
So like once every 2 weeks, I show my cooking skills by smoking
no, you're
something.
Very good.
I'm getting good at that, but that's about all I can do. And pumpkin pie. Made a really killer pumpkin pie.
Oh, it was a really killer pumpkin pie. Yeah.
All right. Who said I love you first? 3, 2, 1.
You.
Me.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the better driver? 3, 2, 1.
Me.
No.
Yes, absolutely me.
No.
Yes.
What?
Let's talk about tickets.
Oh, well, that just means I'm a fast driver. It doesn't mean I'm not a good driver. All right. So that's one for me. We'll agree to disagree on that one. Who is the most routine oriented? 3, 2, 1.
Me.
Shar. Who is always right? 3, 2, 1.
You.
Shar. Okay, this right here would be a good podcast because we're seeing there's 2 questions here that I'm sure every married couple most married couples would come to with what we did. Split decision on that one. Who spends more money? 3, 2, 1. Shar.
You.
Oh no.
Well, no, and here's the reason I would say that. The reason I would say that is because usually when you buy something, it's like a lot of money, and I usually buy like smaller things, and I'm usually buying it for other people.
That's true. I know, but it's just who spends more money. So think about how you are with gifts. My wife, for the audience.
But aren't the gifts technically from us?
Yes.
So.
But who usually buys them? The audience needs to know that my wife's favorite thing is to buy gifts for people. You love to buy gifts for people, especially family.
I do, even though I sometimes stress out about it. But I would say you spend more money.
Okay. We're not doing really well on this game. All right, here we go. Who is more likely to binge watch a show on Netflix? 3, 2, 1.
Me.
Shar.
Yeah.
Who is most likely running late? 3, 2, 1.
Pat.
Me.
You. Yes,
Oh, that's
absolutely
an easy
you.
one. It's an easy one because your little mantra for life is
if you're not early, you're late.
Yes, or you often will say, if you're early, you're on time.
Yes,
that's another
that is
thing
true.
you love to say. You always said that to our kids too.
Yes.
All right, last one. Who is more of a daredevil adventurous? 3, 2, 1.
You.
Me. Yeah. All right. So there was really 3 of them that we disagreed on. So we'll fight about this later on.
Oh, there's no fight.
Who is always right?
There's no fight.
You said
we'll
I
just
was
have
always
to agree
right.
to disagree.
Yes. Okay. That's part of marriage, though.
Yes, that's true.
Yes. All right. So some questions submitted by the audience. And I'm actually excited about this because I do think you and I talked about this recently. In some ways, we feel like, why do we have a platform to talk about this? Like, we're not marriage counselors, or this isn't our specialty. But it was interesting. A friend of mine asked me recently, this is just 2 weeks ago. He said, what would you rank your marriage on a scale of 1 to 10? And I said, a 9.5. And I told him, I said, I think my wife would give it a 7, maybe an 8.
I think I said an 8.
Yeah.
Did I say an 8?
Yeah.
I don't even remember now.
Yeah. But he told me when I said that, he goes, you guys are way outside of the typical. I mean, even people that have healthy marriages wouldn't really rank theirs that high. And it's not to say we don't have a perfect marriage by any means, and we're still working through it. We're two human beings that still have our fights. But I do think we have something to offer, and especially you do, because anybody who got to know Sharmin McCalla would know that your husband adores you. You have...
Okay, don't start, please.
You have 3 kids that worship you, and you have 6 kids that absolutely adore you, and a son-in-law and a daughter-in-law that could never dream of having a mother-in-law as amazing as you. So,
thank you.
That is why you have a lot to offer with this. I think there's a lot of young people that maybe going into marriage should be going, I want a marriage like that someday. I want my kids to look at me like they look at you someday. I want my grandkids someday to adore me like your grandkids adore you. So I think we have things to offer here. So these are questions that were sent in by the audience, and we're just going to talk through some of them, okay?
Okay.
So was it really love at first sight? 6th grade, you were late to school. You walked in. I was already in class sitting down. Small rural community in Montana. So we had our graduating class from high school was 18, so the audience knows when we say small, we're talking small school. But you're the new girl at school, and you walk in, and I glance up, and I'm like, oh, dang, she's cute. And you got on the bus later, and you said, oh, he's cute to your sister, and then denied it when she told everybody. But is that love at first sight?
I would say no. I would say that we thought each other were cute, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it was love at first sight because I didn't know you. I think if you really love somebody, like really truly love somebody, I think you've gotten to know them.
Yeah.
Who they are.
Yeah, and why would you say that? Like, why would you say you can't really love someone until you really know them? Because there's a lot of people that would talk about love at first sight, or our story. It's kind of a fairy tale story. They would say, oh, you guys loved each other right away. We've never dated anybody else. We got married at 19. And the first moment we saw each other, we liked each other. But you would say that's not love?
No.
I would agree. We've talked about this many times. We've said that was liking or infatuation. I think someone can look across the room or
I thought you were
across
cute.
the restaurant or across the
your
bar
freckles.
and go, yeah, and go, I think they're cute, or I want to get to know them more. But that's just infatuation. That's, in fact,
attraction.
Yeah, attraction. But it's not really love until you've gone through some crap together, right?
No, that's true. Yeah, definitely.
Like you can almost imagine, like the audience can imagine like a U shape, and over here it's attraction or infatuation, and then you go down, and then you get into the crap, or we could use another word and bleep it out, and then you come back up the other side, and that's what love is you've worked through some stuff. We've talked about that before.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, number 2. So it wasn't love at first sight, but it was attraction at first sight. Number 2, what is something you wish you could go back and tell your newlywed self after knowing each other for 40 years and being married for 31 years? If you could go back and talk to Sharmin at 19.
I would say figure out how to communicate with your spouse, whether that's seeing a counselor, not because you're in trouble, or reading a book, or figuring out, okay, when we do have problems, let's agree on these are some steps that we're going to take to either talk about it, communicate about it, or figure it out. That is one thing that I would suggest.
Yeah. Because we just had to kind of figure that out, right? On our own.
Yeah, and I'm totally a work in progress on that.
Well, me too. We just had a good little disagreement a couple of weeks ago, and it really came down to communication.
Yes, we did.
31 years, known each other for almost 40 years, and 31 years later, and we're still.
Took us 5 days to talk about it.
Yes, it did. It did. So if you could go back to Sharmin 19, you're about to get married, or you've been married for a couple of months, you would want to say, hey, take some time, whether it's going to a counselor, reading a book, or figuring out, but working on how do we communicate skills really well. Yeah. Anything else that you would say to Sharmin at 19?
That it's okay to set boundaries, even between you and your spouse.
Yeah.
One of the things that I learned.
We're both smiling, and
one of the things.
A lot of audience just listening, so they can't see us smiling.
Yeah.
So go on.
One of the things that we learned actually when we were walking through a book with a group of friends, the Boundaries book, had to do.
Highly recommend it.
Highly recommend that book, because you think, oh, these are like super serious, and it's like, no, these don't have to be super serious boundaries, because the one that really made a difference for me was. You might have a terrible day at work, or you're just really grumpy for some reason. And I would take that on. I would take it personally, or I would be like, and then all of a sudden it's affecting my day. It's affecting my attitude, which then affects the kids and everything. And I realized after we read that book that I do not have to be grumpy just because you're grumpy. Yeah. I can say, man, I'm really sorry you had a really crummy day, but I can choose. I can still choose not to have a crummy attitude and take on your problems, because number one, I can't fix them, and they're your problems, and it's your attitude, and I can't fix that.
Yeah.
You have to fix it. But that we were a ways into marriage before we talked about that.
Wouldn't you say we were 10 years into marriage? Is that or more than that?
Probably.
Yeah, 10 plus years.
Probably. Yeah.
The reason that if they're watching this and not listening, they saw us smiling when we brought this up. And the reason we're smiling is because when we were going through that book together, and that was one of the boundaries that you put out, that was a big one for you. Man, it pissed me off early on, because I'd come home and I'd be angry and grumpy, and you would used to get angry and grumpy with me. It was kind of like I'd bring you down to my level. And all of a sudden, my wife's changing, and she's still going through the house like whistling and happy, and I'm mad, and I'm like, well, you should be mad with me. And it was something we just kind of had to work out. But that was a great book, and I would highly recommend that for really anybody.
Absolutely.
Especially in a relationship.
Yes, because it's not even just for your marital relationships. It could be friendships, family.
Yeah.
They offer different books for different.
Yeah. I think the thing that I jotted down when I was thinking through that question, what would I go back to the 19 or 20-year-old Pat and say? I would go, this is going to go really, really fast.
Oh, that's a good one. It's true.
So soak it up. I don't think you and I have talked about this a lot, because we just made it into our 50s recently. We're both 51 now. I don't think we didn't. It's not that we thought people were lying to us when they said that. And then I'm saying this to anybody who's in their 20s and 30s and early 40s right now. You can't know until it happens how fast it's going to go.
That's very true. That's very true. Sometimes you just have to experience it in order to fully wrap your head around how it feels.
One of the quotes that you and I have really grown to connect with and go, yeah, how true that is in your 20s and 30s, sometimes the days are long and the years are short, right?
That's true. Mm-hmm.
So especially for you with little kids.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to stay home with the kids, and I love that you did, and you enjoyed those years, but you had some long days because of it. But all of a sudden it felt like we blinked our eyes and they're leaving home.
They have starting their own families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say I tell my young self, treasure the journey because it's going to go fast.
Yeah.
And I'm sure anybody who's 60 or 70 listening to us said, you have no
idea
how much faster it's going to go in the next.
Wait.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that.
Next one. What special role has your faith in God played in your marriage?
Probably one of the biggest things for me is hope. Because when you're in the middle of something that's either frustrating or even just family issues or marital issues, I guess we're talking about marriage, but there's just hope. There's hope for reconciliation. There's hope for change, for forgiveness. There's hope for joy and just a renewal.
Yeah, I wrote down forgiveness. It was a big one for me. And, you've heard me tell this story many times, but this was early in our marriage. And we'd moved to Chicago. So we're 19, we get married, and we moved to Chicago, have no job, no place to stay,
no
little
car.
bit in the savings, and no car. And so we roll into Chicago as 19-year-olds, both of us from rural Montana. And we've got 3 days before the U-Haul has to be back, and we got to find an apartment. We got to find jobs.
Nobody would rent a hotel room for us because we were only 19.
Yeah. Because you had to be 21 there. And remember, I got so angry at that manager of the hotel. Yes. Because we drove back like miles just trying to find a hotel to stay at that night. Finally, I'm like, let me talk to the manager. Manager comes out. I'm like, you mean to tell me that I could join the military and go overseas and get my head blown off, but I can't rent a hotel room?
With my wife.
But we finally did rent one, and we found out why they rented it to us, because it was a disgusting place. And I went in to get ice later, and the guy's checking someone else, and he's like, did you want the whole night rate or the half night rate? And I'm going, where are we staying? So those were our early years. But anyway, we have a disagreement early on there. We're living in Chicago, and I'm driving into work. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm right this time. And I still look, I don't even remember what it was about for sure, but it was one of those times where obviously we have a lot of disagreements. We've had a lot of disagreements. Sometimes you were right. Sometimes I was right. Sometimes it doesn't really matter. But in this case, I was so sure I was right. And I had done the dangerous thing, and I had counted. And I said sorry the last 4 times. It's her turn. But I remember that little verse in Ephesians, forgive as Christ forgave you. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, what if God counted?
Oh,
what if God counted and said, have forgiven you enough times. You're done.
That's
so
true.
He didn't ask us to forgive like we humans forgive. He said, forgive as I forgive. So that one's been a huge one for me. And I know you've had to forgive me a lot more than I've had to forgive you, but that was one of them that stuck with me. That we're being the question again, what special role has your faith in God played? The forgiveness thing. We're going to keep forgiving. I think the other one, and we're going to touch on this in a little bit again, was it's a covenant. That in the Bible, marriage is a covenant. It's not just that you said, I do in front of some family and friends. There's something mystical about it. In fact, Jesus compares it to him in the church. So when we stood up, we said, I do. There was something mystical. It wasn't just a contract we made. It was a covenant. It's a very serious covenant. And we'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. But all right, number 4. Another question that came in from the audience. What is a struggle of getting married young that no one talks about? This is a good one, because
this is a really
not a lot of 19-year-olds get married anymore. Not nowadays.
No.
What were some struggles that came up because we got married at 19?
Well, part of this struggle probably had a little bit to do with the fact that when we moved to Chicago after we got married, I had been living at home. So, and you had been out on your own for a few years. But holidays and traditions can sometimes be difficult when you get married or getting married young, because you haven't necessarily had time to maybe develop your own. And then when you get married, it's like, well, my family did this. Well, my family did that. Well, what are we going to choose to do in our family? Or do we go hang out with your family, or do we hang out with my family at this time?
Yeah.
Or there's just can be a lot of drama. There could be a lot of conflict. And so there could be some holidays where you end up fighting,
Yep.
trying to figure that out instead of celebrating whatever that holiday or occasion may be. So that was something that, and sometimes it's just hard.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, I did grow up in a family that did have a lot of traditions, and
Yes, you
moving
did.
away from home right after getting married, it was hard not to be around family.
Yeah, so we were having as 19-year-olds to start building our own traditions. What you're saying is it was trying to wrestle through like, okay, which ones are we going to do from your family? Which are we going to do from my family? And
Or just new ones.
yeah, new ones.
New ones. We're still making new ones.
We are. Yeah.
Yes.
Which goes to, this is another thing you and I talk about often. You know, people say, well, it's dangerous getting married young. Well, it's dangerous getting married at any age. I don't care what it is. But most people say getting married young because you're going to change. Your brain hasn't fully developed until you're 24. I hear all that stuff all the time. And you and I, this is something we're adamant about, right? What do you often say?
You're constantly changing.
You saw me change in my 30s.
Absolutely. And your 40s.
Yeah. Big time in my 40s.
You're constantly changing. So you have to learn to adapt, be flexible, and to allow for that change. And hopefully it's positive and not negatively, but you want to grow and mature.
Yeah.
Whether relationally, in your faith,
Yeah.
With your family, whether it's education, your job.
Yeah.
The older you get, I'm certainly hope I'm not the same person I was when I was 20 or 30 for that matter.
Exactly. And I think that's such an important point for people to take. I don't care if you wait till you're 25 or 30 or 35 to get married. If you think you're established and you're not going to change,
that's true.
You will. That's what
you'll
you're
be
saying,
disappointed.
Right? Yeah, you'll be disappointed because you will change. And so we've had to, in all the years we've known each other since 6th grade, dating through high school, married since we're 19, we've had to journey through both of us changing. Right?
For sure.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
For me, the one that I wrote down on that one, struggle with getting married young, I had to give up some things. I loved sports. I loved playing basketball. And we're young, married, 19, 20. Like we said, we had no jobs. We moved to Chicago. So all of a sudden, I'm sitting working security at the school we were going to. And I'm sitting in a security vehicle watching all these guys go down to play intramurals. And I remember it almost hurt my heart. I wanted to play so bad, and I couldn't because I had to work. And so I said, there are some things we had to give up for that. Now I would never change it. In fact, I wrote this quote down: "Sacrifice is giving up something you love for something you love more." So I had a sacrifice, but I look back and I go, I'd do that sacrifice again any day. It was worth it. But you do have to give up some things. All right. Anything else you want to say on that?
Another one would be friendships. That changed.
Yes.
That's because, especially when we were married so young, you have all of your friends, and I had my friends, which were mostly your friends for the most part. But sometimes you have to transition to that. Wait, now I am you want to be your best friend, but sometimes that comes into play action wise in the choices that you make when you talk about wanting to hang out with your friends versus maybe your spouse.
I learned that the hard way, didn't I?
Yeah. Yes.
Can I tell that story?
Absolutely.
So one of the guys, Shar and I had gone to school with him. I'd gone to school with him since 4th grade, 6th grade when you came, graduated. He was one of my buddies. We did a lot of backpacking together. We would work out together. But I told Shar I told you one night, I said, hey, we're going to go to the river. And you said, what time will you be back? I said, around dinner. Yeah, it was an afternoon. I said, around dinner. She said, okay. So I go to the river, and we were
This is pre-cell phone, everybody.
Yeah.
Like, this is back in 91. So this is pre-cell phone.
No way for us to get a hold of each other.
No.
But all of a sudden, he and I are just, throwing rocks, skipping rocks across the water, and I realize the sun is going down. Now, in western Montana, in the summer, when the sun goes down, it's about 9:30. And so I'm like, oh, man, Rich, we got to go. I told my wife I was going to be home at dinner. So it takes us a half an hour to drive home. So I probably walk in about 10 o'clock at night. And I'm already like, oh, man, this isn't going to be good. And I open the door, and the first thing I see is the table. Now, we were so poor, we just had one of those little card tables you could set up and down. And that was our dinner table. But it was set up, and there's this beautiful dinner set and candles burning, but they were only about half an inch long now because they'd been burning a long time.
Yes.
And you're sitting with a nice
negligee
Yes.
on the couch with my arms folded and like tears.
Yes.
It might have been anger at that point,
Yeah,
and not tears, but
it was
I
for
was
sure
very
anger
upset.
at that point. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That was a hard
I'm
lesson to learn.
disappointed.
What you said, I had to learn because it, broke my heart to see what I did to you. But I had to learn at that point that I got to change how I'm living,
The priority.
how I'm living friends'
Right.
priorities. Yeah,
Mhm.
well said. Well said.
Right.
Okay, another question that came in. What boundaries did you set with family to honor, protect your marriage? Ooh, that's a good one.
One of the first ones that came to mind was just to, when you're talking about your spouse or significant other, to especially family, because that's what this question is, just be mindful of how you're talking about them. Because if you're having a really hard time with your spouse and you may say something to a family member that's really negative because you're really frustrated or upset at that time, but to you, you're like, oh, okay, we dealt with it. You make up, you get over it, you're sorry or whatever. But your family member may not forget that you said that. And that could affect their relationship with their spouse for the negative, which could create problems down the road.
Yeah, and we both saw some marriages that were ruined that way, with people dragging their garbage, because every marriage has their garbage. Every marriage has their disagreements and their fights. But when you start dragging out to family, it can be really, really dangerous. And it's something I've always been extremely thankful for you, Shar, because even when I was teaching and coaching, I used to go in the teacher's lounge in our 20s, and I would hear these women just complaining about their husbands. And it's been so good to know that even when you're upset with me, even when you're frustrated with me, I know that you're not dragging that out in front of other people, that you usually speak highly of me. And so I've always appreciated that. But that's a good one. So having boundaries with how you talk about your spouse, that's what you're saying?
Yes, I'm not saying you don't ever not say anything that you're having a hard time or you're going through something, or, we're really upset with each other.
So you're not saying that you are going to pretend like everything's fine.
No,
or that you're not
you
going to
can't
share
do that.
like,
That's
hey,
fake.
pray for us, we're having a tough time right now, or something like that.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, and you can still indicate that things aren't well without dragging your spouse through the mud.
Yes.
You can be like, yeah, we're not really happy with each other right now. We'll figure it out, but right now is really tough.
I think that's a really good one. It's just making sure that you're really trying to honor and respect your spouse and how you talk about them to other people, especially family. Now, we could put a caution here too. I think that changes if you're in an abusive situation.
Oh, for sure. That's not what we're talking about.
If you're in an abusive situation, because a lot of people that have been abused, they're like, well, I didn't want to talk about it. And like, you should not be in that situation. You need to tell someone. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Another one. Question from the audience. How did you prioritize your marriage when you started expanding your family, having children, adoption, foster parents?
One of the things that we tried to protect is our evenings together. So when we had kids need a lot of sleep to begin with. So putting them to bed between 6 and 7 or 6:30 and 7:30, and it varies with their age. But having an early bedtime ensured that even though we were able to spend time with our kids at the bedtime, because that's when they start to get really chatty and want you.
Yeah, suddenly they have to go to the bathroom 5 times.
Right. But their brain is but their brain is also starting to process the day, and they want to talk about it. And so it's like, okay. But we also wanted to make sure that we had time in the evening to spend together. We needed that time together too. So even as our kids, more than anything, even as our kids got older, and sometimes we just would say, I know you're not going to turn your light off right now. You can leave your light on and read or draw, play a little bit, even whatever. Sometimes it was like, as long as they're quiet and we don't hear them, we're good. But that way we still had our time together as a couple. Yeah. And then the other one would be lock your doors, lock your bedroom doors.
Yeah. We have some stories there, but we won't share them with the audience.
Yes.
Very important one.
Sorry, kids.
Yeah. And here's why I think that's good, what you're saying. And you're probably going to share some more on this, but I think it's good for everybody to remember, you will continue to spend life with that spouse and your kids will be gone someday.
Yes.
And the danger sometimes is a lot of spouses, they start prioritizing their kids over their spouse.
It's really hard not to do. I know I did that a lot, and we had to talk about that. That was hard for you because that was my priority, especially staying home every day with the kids.
But it goes back to that idea of making sure that you remember that your spouse is the one you're going to be spending life with. Your kids are going to move on, start their own families.
Yeah.
So spending time. Anything else you have on that?
The other thing would be talking about something when you do have a date, which we can talk about another time, but when you do spend time together, sometimes talking about things, subjects other than your kids, especially if you have children, or sometimes it could also be if maybe you don't have children yet, and maybe sometimes you just talk about something other than work.
Yeah.
That could be a big one too. And one of the things that has helped us with that, and you can find these for the audience members, you can find these online. You can look it up and find books, but you can find questions for spouses, like 101 questions or 36 questions or 50 questions, and to talk about with your spouse. And it just dives deeper, and you get to learn more and become more intimate with your husband as far as getting to know them and each other versus just talking about maybe the same thing over and over again.
Good. All right. Next question from the audience. How did you maintain a healthy relationship during the hardest times of your marriage? I wrote down fighting for the marriage. Not fighting with each other, but fighting for the marriage. In fact, I wrote it this way. I said, I'm for her, not against her. I would have to remind myself of that sometimes. True. I'm for her, not against her. We're on a team.
In fact, the last time we, a few weeks ago when we had our big to-do, that's something that when we finally communicated and talked about it, that was what you even mentioned.
Yeah, we're on the same team. So we're going to figure this thing out. And we've had, at any marriage, if you've been married a year, you probably had some of these, but you married 31 years like we have, you definitely had some of them. You've gone through some hard times.
Absolutely.
Difficult things. We've had 3 miscarriages. I've lost some jobs. We've been like, how are we going to pay the bills?
You lose family members.
You're grieving at different things. So we've gone through some difficult things together. And then sometimes when you're going through those difficult things, you find yourself on 2 different, I'm having
journeys,
a good day and you're having a tough day.
Right.
But I think to me, I wrote that down. That's a big one that we just have to keep reminding you. We're on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
We're on the same team.
And to give each other grace. I guess that was something that I thought about was you give each other grace to be where they're at if it is a really hard time. Because sometimes when you're going through hard times, I guess this is specifically talking about in your relationship, but you might be at a different stage of growth. Even personal growth, or maybe you've had trauma in your life and it's like something came up and you're just having a hard time, but to give each other grace that they're not perfect. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And how can I be there for you during this time? And like you said, be there for each other.
Yeah.
Because our relationship, I'm for you, not against you.
That's a good one because I don't think you can really be on the same team or be for that person, not against them without grace. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Grace is a big one. All right. Next question. What sort of gray areas in marriage lead to toxic and unhealthy relationship? This is a good question because this whole podcast is no gray areas, and it's built around the story of some couple of guys that stepped into some gray areas and it got them in a mess, and they're still paying the price for that, the consequences of that. So the question is, what kind of gray areas in marriage lead to toxic and unhealthy relationships? How can we maybe share some gray areas that people that are behind us in their journey can be careful of, or they're in the same part of their journey as we are, and maybe be aware of these gray areas? What are some that you wrote down?
One of the big ones, I think, is communication. The lack of communication, or maybe communicating in the wrong way. Sometimes it's, as any couple knows, it's maybe not what you said, it's how you said it. Tone or the timing. It's like, wow, maybe I should have waited until I said something about that because we're not in a good, neither of us are in a good space to talk about it. So I think communication is definitely a big factor. And man, do I have still a long ways to go on that one. But
yeah, we both do. And I don't know that there's any marriage that someone to say they've arrived at that. But you brought communication up a couple of times, and I think that's good because that's what we'd say to people. Man, it's so much of having a healthy marriage is communicate.
Well, as much as I'd like to think I know what you're thinking, I usually don't.
Yeah,
I can't read your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though I think sometimes I can.
Well,
I assume.
But that's such a great point. because that goes both ways. Like we can't read each other's minds.
True.
One of the things, and hopefully we'll keep getting better at this, because this is probably most of our disagreements we still have. It's working through lack of communication. So if sometimes I would simply, and this is something that I learned a long, long time ago, but I don't do it enough. But if I did it more, it'd probably help, is to say, so you said this, and what I heard you saying is, you think I'm a lazy fat slob. And you go, well, no, but that's what I'm saying. That's what we do sometimes, is we tell a story in our mind. Like you say,
true. Yes.
You say, hey, I've asked you 3 times if you could fix that. Could you fix that? I tell myself the story. She thinks I'm a lazy fat slob. I've been working my butt off. Doesn't she realize how long I've been working every day? How can she go ask me to say, but if I just said, you've asked me 3 times, I haven't done that. I hear you saying I'm lazy. And that's when you can go, no, that's not what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm just saying that you're leaving in a couple of days, and I need you to fix that. This is actually a real thing that just happened.
Yes. Thank you for fixing our Ring doorbell.
Yesterday.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. But that's the communication part.
Yes.
A couple of things that I wrote down, and you may have some too, because this is a very important one, gray areas. Taking them for granted. The longer you're married, the easier it is to start taking that person for granted. That's a gray area to get into.
But how do you not?
Keep pursuing them.
Well, that's true.
You got to keep pursuing them. I think that the danger is like when you're in the infatuation dating stage and you're just like in awe of them, and and you're seeing them at their best all the time. But the danger is you can start taking that person for granted.
That's true.
And that's a gray area to get into. And I don't know that pursuing them is the only answer to that one. So I'd leave for the audience to wrestle with that some.
Right.
How do you not take your spouse for granted after you've been married for 5 years or 7 years or 10 years or 31 years? But that's a big one. That's a gray area. Another one is talking down to each other, disrespecting each other. We've done this pretty well. And I think that's why we gave each other a pretty high score on our marriage. It's really hard when you're mad, when you're really mad,
for sure.
to not say, because here's what's interesting. No one on this planet knows how to hurt me quicker and easier with words than you do, right?
Yeah.
You
vice versa.
Yep. And I could do the same to you because we know each other so well. So the danger is when we get really mad, like every couple does. No one's made you more mad on this planet than me, and vice versa. When you're really angry, you better be very, very careful with your words.
Sometimes it is, in that instance, definitely better to just say, I can't talk about this right now.
And you've said that to me before. You've been like, I can't talk about this right now. I need some time. Because you're aware that you don't want to say something that you may regret.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So or I need to think about it.
I think that's a gray area that we have to be very careful of in our marriages, that we don't talk down to each other. And that goes back to what you said before about boundaries. Don't talk down about your spouse to other people either. You're just creating a habit then of talking down about them. Respect them and honor them. And then this is the other one that I wrote down. Divorce isn't an option. Now, well, you and I talked about this last night, and you said you're taking that because I'm not wading into that mess. And I do want to say, man, if there's listeners and you've gone through a divorce, we're not trying to heap guilt on.
Oh, absolutely not.
We know a lot of couples who have gone through divorces. They're on their second or third marriages. Sometimes we know some couples are in second or third marriages, and now it's like, oh my goodness, like God put them together.
Yeah, they're perfect for one another.
God is the great recycler. He loves to recycle things that have been broken but
redeemed,
I think it's and divorce. There can be one person in a marriage that doesn't want this, and they fought for that, and someone else is saying, I'm done and I'm moving on.
Right.
So we get
for
all
whatever
that.
reason.
We get all that. We know. So let me just start by saying I get that there's a lot of in fact, the Bible even gives some reasons for it. And there's some things that can happen. But that's a gray area when you start having that as an option in your mind. And I think that's helped us. It's not an option. In fact, a couple of weeks ago when we were having a disagreement, it was like
I think that's what we even came to each other finally, and we talked about it, and we said, okay, we need to talk about this because
we're living with each other the rest of
our
our lives.
And I don't want to be, we got to work this out because I don't want to be miserable and you don't want to be miserable. And let's figure this out and let's be better together.
If divorce isn't an option, then the best option is to fix the problem.
True.
Because if divorce is an option, then I may go. But if it's not an option, then my best option, our best option is let's fix this, because we're if we get another 20 years on this earth, we're going to live another 20 years together, and this is kind of miserable walking around our house like this.
Right.
So that's a gray area. I think that you got to be really careful of. If you make that commitment, then mean that commitment, and just don't bring that. It's just
Do
not an
everything
option.
possible to
Do everything
avoid.
possible. And again,
Yes.
we know some couples where maybe one spouse had that, and the other one
Mm-hmm.
decided, I don't want to be in this anymore. We get all that. But another question: who or what did you turn to if you had problems that you realized you both could not solve by yourself?
I had some close friends that I would talk about things with. This goes back to what we talked about before. Most of the time, I don't think any of the time really, I talked to family. It was usually a close friend and it was mostly like I was really having a hard time, but it was probably affecting our relationship. And a lot of times they were able to give me perspective. And more than anything, the boot to say, talk to your husband.
Yeah.
Because he's for you.
Yeah, I would answer the same. We had some good mentors in our life. We had some good friends in our life. We've been blessed with that. And okay, I want to pause on that one and say, because we sometimes say we were blessed with that. No, we went out and found good ones. Because some people are
That's
like, well, I
true.
don't have any good friends or mentors. Go find them. We searched out and we made sure we had good people in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
I did
true.
the same thing. I wouldn't discount. We never did counseling. But I wouldn't discount that. That could be very, very important for some people. If it's like, hey, when you couldn't solve an issue, maybe getting a good counselor can help you because they'll just help with the communication. So that
Right.
could be a really
Yeah.
important thing. We
Yeah.
had some friends and mentors that kind of did that for us a little bit.
Yes.
Correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
How can you best support your spouse when they are struggling emotionally, physically, mentally, or spiritually? Another question that came in.
Sometimes I think we try to be God and we try to solve their problems for them when they're struggling and they just may need somebody to talk to. They just need support more than to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So their journey, because I believe this question's not necessarily talking about the marriage relationship, it's just talking about maybe where they're at in a personal space. Why are you smiling?
Well, no, I'm smiling because it's so good because I think
Oh,
I've
okay.
gotten a little better at this, haven't I? I was not good. I'm a problem solver by nature.
Oh, yes. No,
that's what I do.
That's true.
So
Yes.
early in our marriage, you'd come with me something and I'd be like, okay, here's what we need to do. And I'd start trying to solve the problem.
And I'm like,
you helped me learn. Sometimes I just need a hug.
Yes, absolutely.
Sometimes
yes.
I
just need
to
know
shut
that,
up and hug me and just.
Yeah. Sometimes it's talking about it, just expressing what is going on. Just there's relief and there's okay, you're not carrying it inside. You don't feel like you're alone.
I like that. So it's not playing God. It's just sometimes being there.
Yes.
Giving space.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote that one down too. Give them space. Pray for them. Be patient. Sometimes is how we walk through that.
Yeah. Prayer. That's a big one.
Again, it goes back to we're a team. We're better together. We're going to get through this. I'm not sure how. I can't see the end of this either, but we're going to get through this.
Because each of us have gone through different things on a personal level that the other person can't solve.
Yeah.
It is not in their power to do that at all.
Yeah. So, I've publicly shared more so recently my battle with anxiety and panic attacks for 12 years. And it hit me in an area that, man, I loved. I was a speaker and I worked hard at it. And it got exhausting. You know this better than anybody because, you saw it. Most people would just hear me talk about it every once in a while, but you saw this was a daily fight for me. So how did you, when you see a spouse going through something like that, how did you walk with me through that? You
would probably be the better one to answer that than I would. Because what did I do that made a difference for you?
Well, I ask you that because it goes along with what you're saying. You couldn't fix it.
No,
right? Like that's what you're saying. You can't play God.
No.
Like there's nothing you could do to fix it. So what do you do as a spouse when you're in a situation like that and you're going through and they're struggling physically, spiritually, emotionally, as they were saying? How do you handle that when it's like I can't fix this. I can't do anything to.
I think the biggest thing is to be there, let the person talk or share, to be vulnerable. Prayer. Praying for the person is absolutely for sure because that is probably the one thing that you can do that will help to maybe not fix the problem, but ease whatever is going on, but just support.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can look like whether you try to, sometimes a distraction is needed. Sometimes that's the last thing that's needed. You're just trying to gauge each instance, each time that happens. What do they need from me?
Yeah.
And most of the time, they don't need anything from you.
Just love and
You just need to
support.
be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Know that
And
you care.
that goes a long ways, because in this specific instance, what I really needed to learn is I was maybe wrestling for 10 years, battled this thing, and it just, as you know, it just got exhausting. But a lot of my significance or value came through that. So it was like, well, what if I don't have this? Like, this is my greatest gift. What if I don't have this? But I realized through your love and support, I'm like, well, it doesn't change anything with me and you.
No.
I mean, there may be other people that'll look at me differently, but with me and you, we're still the same. Just go on. So that's that love and support. Just sometimes you can't do anything, but just be there for them. I think that's really good. Another question: what does your spouse do for you that you appreciate the most?
Well, this is practical, but the very first thing that came up to me, and this has been an ongoing thing in our relationship, but that you plan vacations for us and our family. And then I'm going to say, before you talk about that, but that I love the fact that you love God, you love me, and you loved our family. Like, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, I already talked about what mine is. I mean, the fact that you know my love language. We'll talk a little bit about love languages, but mine is words of affirmation. And so when I would call you and I'd look on your phone and I'd see my hero pops up, that meant a lot to me. For some people, that may not be a big thing. They have a different love language. That's huge for me. When I would speak, up until I was 50, that was basically what I did for 30 years. I was a speaker. And so I'd get done speaking. I may have scores of people or hundreds of people going, "Oh, that message was so good." And I kind of like that. But there was only one person I really wanted to hear that from. You were always very good about, just saying, "Hey, I like that when you did this, or this was a good part of it," because you know that words of affirmation meant a lot to me, or mean a lot to me. So I think, it's one thing I really appreciate that you do for me. And so I would say to the audience, figure out your spouse and what their love language is, what they need from you, and then make sure you're pouring into that. You're giving them that. What was a hard lesson you learned in your marriage?
Oh, I think early on, one of the hardest lessons, I don't know if hard is the right word, but I realized that we are not alike at all.
And we thought we were.
We thought we enjoy
right?
similar things. We enjoy similar activities. We enjoy doing similar things. But that doesn't mean that we're alike.
Yes.
Because we are not alike.
But
we have very different personalities, likes, dislikes, the lens that we see things through, our perspective, how we work. Like, it's so different.
Totally different. But since we knew each other since we were 12, dated through high school, we get married and we're like, we're alike. That's what I mean when I say we're alike, because we thought we were alike because we had similar interests and we love to do the same things.
And we
had fun
didn't
doing
live
those
together.
things. But we get married and we start living life together, and all of a sudden it's like, what the heck? She's totally different than me, and which is how God usually works it, right? Opposites attract.
Yes.
Remember the book?
Yes.
Describe the book.
Yes. The title was Opposites Attract, but the word attract was crossed out and it was slashed out, and it was the word attract was slashed out and it said attack.
Yeah.
And wow, was that book appropriate?
Oh,
for
one
us.
of the best books for our marriage.
We
wasn't
really, yes, it was.
Because we had just started this journey of living life together, and all of a sudden we're going like, we're actually really opposite from each other.
Right.
Yeah. And we just having stupid, like all couples, we're having stupid fights. Like one of the first ones we have after we get married, the first time we go shopping together, we had to fight over brown sugar, right? We're standing in the aisle and it was like,
you're like, this one's cheaper. And I said, well, do you want to have soft cookies? And you're like, but this one's 20 cents cheaper. But do you want to have soft cookies?
Because the lens I looked through at that time in my life was just, you get
save
whatever's
money.
The cheapest thing. You save money. Because, and yours was, well, there's quality involved in this too.
Right.
But that was just a silly example of, we just look through a different lens.
Yes.
And the longer we've lived together, the more we realize how opposite we are.
The biggest difference for me was the Enneagram. That made a huge difference, learning about each other, learning about you, what Enneagram number you are, because it tells you everything, like what you think, what you do. It's all filters through that perspective, that how you're bent. That made a huge difference, not just with you, but with our family.
Yeah, our kids.
But
we learned our kids a lot better.
The biggest difference. And we've done Strength Finder, and that was good too. But I feel like as far as a relationship,
Yeah.
I think the Enneagram has made, for me at least, it's made the most difference.
Yeah, but Shar, you're bringing up something important, though. I think again is it's going that yes, those are the love language tests, the strength finder test, personality test, Enneagram test. You're saying the Enneagram was the one that worked the best for you, but we're saying those are important. Learn your spouse. Learn about your spouse.
Right. And those questions that we talked about earlier, that is one way that you can learn about your spouse. Yeah.
So we get engaged at 19. You're 18, I guess, 19. And the pastor that was going to marry us, he's like, well, I want to do premarital counseling with you, we were great. Yeah. So we go in the first time, but we had good mentors in our life and good people in our life. So we knew all the right answers with marriage. So we go to the first premarital counseling. And remember, he's like, at the end of it, he's like, you guys will be fine. You're good. Yeah. Oh, okay. And then we get into our marriage.
Little we knew.
Well, yeah. So I wish so much that like some of our premarital had been these things that we're talking about. Take some of these personality tests. Figure out how you're wired. You look through a different lens than I look through.
And our kids have gone through some premarital counseling, and I'm like, oh, I wish we would have gone through that book. That was phenomenal to learn about one another and your relationship and what that will look like in the future.
Yeah, we'll hope so much. So moving on here then. What is your favorite thing about marriage?
I get to live with my best friend.
I wrote something similar. Okay. I said, living this adventurous life with someone who is your best friend, lover, and partner.
There you go.
That is the beauty of it, isn't it?
It is.
Like we get to do life together.
Yes.
The ups, the downs, the messiness, but it makes the ups even better, and the lows, it makes them better too, because you're not doing it alone.
Well, there's usually, we've talked about this, in the circle of friendships that you may have. You've got the inner circle is really tight, and it's probably a spouse. And then you've got another circle, and you've only maybe got 2 or 3 people in it. Then you have another circle, and that has a few more in it. And that also has to do with the time that you spend with them. You don't have time in your day, in your life, to spend all this time with everybody. You can't. You have to have those circles that designate your priority. Yeah. You have to. Yeah. Otherwise, you'd go crazy. So to be able to have you be that one inner circle that I get to spend my time with, be vulnerable with when I'm the intimacy, not just physical, but emotional.
No, that's a good part though too.
So, well, yeah.
No, you're totally right. And you use the word vulnerable, and that's what jumped out at me. That in a healthy marriage, you can be vulnerable and it's okay, and you feel safe with that.
Right.
And that's rare. And that's why that inner circle, I tell people often that one of my favorite things was, for a long time, when I would call you, when it would pop up on your phone, it would say my hero and have a picture of me, which is interesting because no one knows my flaws better than you. There's no one on this planet that knows my flaws better than Sharmin McCalla.
Oh my gosh, you're my hero.
But then to have you say that is which is where it's like, that's that inner circle,
right?
Where I'm vulnerable because you know my flaws, but to still say that, that's something special. That's doing that adventure together. Yeah. Well, what are the ways for people to keep the spark or keep the relationship fresh after years of marriage? This is a good one, because I think, especially in our society today, you see people joking about it all the time. They've been married for 15 years. Like, where's the spark now? It's got to be boring. You know each other. So how do you keep that alive?
You have to be intentional. It doesn't just happen. You have to choose to, whether it's going on dates, whether it's going on vacations together, just the two of you, whether it's like for us, what we have had to do is sometimes with, especially you're probably a lot more sentimental. Is that the word?
Oh, yeah.
Especially
I'm a
with
crybaby.
Yeah.
I hear you saying I'm a crybaby.
Especially with our family and the memories we have with our family. And we could totally get stuck there and always think about and remember those situations. But we have chosen to be intentional about making new memories, even if it's just the two of us, because most of the time now it's just the two of us. Yeah. So we have chosen to be intentional about making new memories. And sometimes that's exploring new places or new things, and sometimes that's just going someplace you've been before, but you're just making new memories in that location or wherever.
Yeah, I'm smiling because You're so right on. I am sentimental, and I'm the one that when our kids, especially our firstborn, when our daughter left, and I always make videos for them, like their senior year. Remember, I make the big video. We still watch them, and it's kind of their whole life, and it's got some songs. And so Ashley moves away. She moves back to Montana. We're living in Phoenix. And when you and the boys were gone, I would just put that in and just sit there on the couch and
Just cry.
and it's just torturing myself with that. And then I did the same with both boys when they left home. But what you're saying is so true. We kept pursuing each other. And you kept reminding us, like, let's make new memories. And it was a hard transition for a little while because we poured our life into our kids and we loved having our kids at home.
Absolutely.
And it was hard when they left, but man.
Yeah, this has been a good.
We're really loving having the kids gone now.
Yeah, we are.
Because of what you really encouraged us to do. Like, let's make new memories. So now in a year or two, I'm going to be watching videos of us right now.
And you'll be crying over this.
Perfect. Okay, next question.
And I won't want to look at them. So
let's say a boy and a girl in their young 20s just got engaged and are planning to get married. What piece of advice would you say to them? We've been talking for quite a while now, all this different stuff, just about our life, how we've made our marriage, how we've done things. If we had to boil it down and say, here's 3 pieces of advice we would give. Now, you and I decided last night that we're going to sit down and let's talk through this and we'll come up with 3 together.
Right.
So here's the 3 pieces of advice and then we'll talk about them. Number 1, pursue each other. Question, how do you do that practically? So someone may be listening going, okay, yeah, pursue each other. Sounds good. But how do you practically do that?
Well, it goes back to probably the answer to many of the other questions that we took, like finding out about the other person, like getting to know them, who they really are, whether it's versus with the Enneagram as a part of that or just dating, of course.
How about this one? Being flexible and recognizing that there's going to be seasons that people are going to change.
Oh, absolutely. Because of what we talked about earlier, you don't want to be still married to a 20-year-old who's 40, but they still act like they're 20.
Yeah.
You know, whatever that may be. You want to allow for maturity, for growth, whether it's emotionally. Obviously, there's going to be changes physically, but so you talk about that, you work through that, and just relationally.
Yeah, and I would put on there with the pursuing each other, friendship. We've talked about this from the early days of our marriage, that friendship is what's going to go. You're going to, there's, so much of your married life is going to ebb and flow. There's going to be ups and downs. You have good times, but it's the friendship, though, that's going to carry. Like, this is your best friend. This is the person.
We laugh a lot together.
Yeah, we do laugh a lot together.
We laugh a lot together.
With each other and at each other. Yes. Not in a demeaning way.
No, but we do. Yeah.
Like, and her sound effects for the audience are atrocious.
They're absolutely and I'm not going to do that.
And I love to try to make a gun sound. Then I just laugh. You've made me laugh till in tears because but that's a good one, like laughing with each other. Okay, so pursuing each other. Number 2, fight well. Some people might not like the word fight, so we could just say argue, disagree, whatever it is, because maybe some people grew up in a really bad home and fight is a trigger word for them. But for us, we're going to use the word fight well, disagree, argue well. What does that look like? How do you do that?
That respect is important because it leads back to I'm for you, not against you. I'm for us, not against us.
Remember when we were talking about this last night? We were talking back and forth about it and everything, and all of a sudden I go, oh, I got a quotable quote, and I wrote it down.
Yes.
This is gold. This is a quote that came out of our discussion.
Okay.
You will fight well with each other if you spend most of your time fighting for each other.
So wait, say that one more time.
You will fight well with each other.
That's the word. Okay.
If you spend most of your time fighting for each other.
Right.
If most of our marriage was fighting with each other, there's a problem. But because we spent most of our time fighting for each other, the times that this is going to happen in any marriage, because we're 2 broken human beings, that you have fights, you're going to fight well or better with each other. Keep the main thing the main thing. You said that last night.
Oh, that's true. Keep the main thing the main thing. I think sometimes, we all have a tendency, no matter what relationship you're in, but especially with a spouse, that there's something that happens and you're like, this is why I'm really mad. But then all of a sudden when you're talking, it's like, oh, wait, but all of these other little things that might be irritants or whatever start coming into the conversation. It's like, wait. In fact, we had to do that when we talked a few weeks ago. We had to both agree to go, okay, this is a separate issue. We can talk about that another time, but this is why we're here.
Yeah.
So let's talk about why we're here in this situation, and we can deal with that another time.
Yeah. So 3 pieces of advice. Number 1, pursue each other. Number 2, fight well. And then the last one was, love is not a noun, it's an action verb.
Yes.
And this
Very,
was
very
yours.
much
This is
so.
what you said.
Yeah, you have to back it up with action because just hearing somebody say, I love you. I mean, I love chocolate.
Yep. Yeah.
That usually means I'm eating it.
Yep.
There's action, right?
Yes.
Like there's
You're
action.
doing something about it.
I'm doing something
Yes.
about it. I love to hike. Well, okay, you're probably out hiking then. Well, I love you. Well, how do I serve you? Which sounds subservient, but it's not. But how do I make you happy? What do I make the foods that you like? Do we do the things that you like? Do we watch the things that you like to watch? Do we, whatever it is that will make your day, so to speak.
And me doing the same back for you.
Yes.
So it makes a healthy relationship.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And, again, coming from a faith-based background, both of us are, that's what's beautiful about the Bible. The most quoted verse in the entire Bible, probably, if you've watched any football game, you've seen it there in the background, John 3:16, for God so loved the world, that's not where it ends, that he gave his only begotten son, that he gave his son. So that's where you see the action.
The action.
God doesn't just say he loves us. He actually displays it by how he does it. And he says the same to us.
Right.
That if we claim to love, then there's going to be action behind it. Anything else that you feel like you have to say that we're missing?
I really love you.
Love you too. Okay, this is going to be the fun part. And we've been wrestling with this one. So the fun thing we do in the No Gray Areas podcast is we do 2 truths and a lie, which, by the way, was your idea. Okay. When we were coming up with this podcast a year and a half ago or whatever, and I said, I want to do something that's a little different. Like everybody's got their little thing that they end. What could we do? And you said, you should maybe do the 2 truths and a lie. And it's been a fun part. People have talked about how they really enjoy it. So we interview a guest for about a half hour, 45 minutes. And then I say, give us 2 truths and a lie and see if the audience and me, if we can guess it.
Okay.
But you and I have been wrestling with this for weeks. We've been thinking
about it. Well, we've known each other for so long.
Yeah, we've known each other for 40 years. How can I?
Okay.
So we both last night were with our youngest son. We needed his help.
Yes. He was trying to give us some idea.
I'm going to stump you.
I'm going to go first.
Okay.
I want to go first. I have to read mine too. So I'm going to read mine.
Okay. 2 truths and a lie. I got to figure out which lie.
Okay. I did not earn straight A's in high school. I wet the bed until I was in first grade. Kyle was present at the birth of his cousin. Kyle is our youngest son.
You got straight A's in high school. You got straight A's your whole life, probably. Kyle was not at the birth of. That's the lie.
No, that's true.
Ah.
He was little. He was like 3 months old, and my sister wanted me to be in the room when she delivered, but I was still nursing, so I had to take him with me. He was sitting in his car seat when Bella was born.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I know you because you always talk about that was something you were always embarrassed about. You wet your bed until like way late, but that's not the lie though, because that's true. But it was the first grade off?
Yeah. It was actually 3rd grade.
Okay.
I had a problem.
Yeah.
I had a problem, but we figured it out.
You got me.
I got you.
Nice.
I got you.
All right.
Okay.
Kyle's going to be so happy. He helped us with these, our youngest son.
I did not earn straight A's in high school.
What?
That is true.
Yeah,
That's
you did.
true.
You were
That's
the
not the lie.
valedictorian.
Doesn't mean you earned straight A's in high school. We only had 18 kids in our class. I didn't have to earn straight A's in high school. Remember how bad I was at geometry? I didn't understand geometry until my final exam.
Yeah.
So
well, just so the audience knows, you were the valedictorian. I was the guy that made the top 2/3 of the class possible. So.
Okay. Well.
Okay, here we go. 2 truths and a lie.
Okay.
Oh, you got me. I got to get you here.
Okay.
The most embarrassed I ever was with you was when I pooped my pants in front of you the first time.
Okay.
The happiest I've ever been with you was the day I married you. The most captivated I ever was with you was the day we drove over the pass. I was looking at you in the mirror as you sat in the back seat with our niece, and the wind was blowing through your hair.
Okay. I'm going to say the number 3 is true.
Yes.
Okay.
Now you got a 50-50 chance.
I know. Okay, read the first 2 again.
You're going to make me say the first one again?
Yes.
The most embarrassed I ever was with you was when I pooped my pants in front of you the first time. The happiest I've ever been with you was the day I married you.
I'm going to say that the first one is true and the second one is the lie.
Why do you think it's the lie?
Because that was just one day, and I feel like we've had so many good, it's just gotten better.
You got it. You got it. So the most embarrassing moment was the time I pooped my pants in front of you the first time. happiest I've ever been with you was the day I married you. That was the lie, because I would say the happiest I ever was with you was when it was around our 10-year anniversary. We had a couple of kids, 3 kids, and we got to go to Hawaii, just the 2 of us.
And that was
That was around the 10-year, and that was the happiest I ever was with you, I think.
Ever.
That was like...
Ever. Sorry, last week was tough.
What?
No, I'm just kidding. No, that was a really great memory.
It was a great memory.
Really
And why
good
we often
vacation.
encourage couples
Yes.
saying, man, you have to, once you start having kids, you got to figure out a way, have
How
mom
to
and
get away
dad or
just the 2 of you.
Graham somehow get away every once in a while, the 2 of you, because it's one of the most free. We just felt free, and we knew each other better. When you first married, you're still trying to figure each other. You're trying to learn about. But we'd been together now 10 years married, and it was a great time. So, all right,
And I
you
do
got
remember,
me.
I totally got you. And I just, for the record, I win. So,
Okay.
I win.
Okay. Well, another important thing in marriage is don't keep records. So we're going to forget who won this one.
Okay.
All right. Well, Sharmin, thanks for being on the No Gray Areas
You're
podcast.
welcome. Thanks
Love
for
you.
asking me. I love you too.
Hey, today we had special guest Sharmin McCalla, my wife, and we had a great conversation about what makes a healthy relationship. But we want to hear from you. What do you think is essential to making a great marriage or a great relationship? Please comment below, or if you're listening to an audio platform, send in your comments to info@nograyAreas.com. Thanks for joining us, and remember to like, follow, and especially subscribe. No Gray Areas.